Thank you. Commissioner Sarnoff, you're recognized for the record. He lost the coin toss.
I did. But I want to say it was a retoss, so I think I was a little bit chipped. But Larry, maybe you can come up here for a moment. I have a bucket. It's got $117 million in it. We'll put the plus land on the side for a moment. How do I start reducing the bucket? How does the city's liability or cost, how does it get reduced?
Don't quite understand the question.
Well, sure. There is a 5,750 guaranteed seat at $10 seating that the Marlins are guaranteeing to pay at $10.03. How much do I reduce this one? That's a reduction from the guarantee, right?
That's a reduction from the guarantee.
What else can I back up?
Then, if you look at the CDT revenue stream that will be committed by the county commission as part of an interlocal, which was, as the county manager stated earlier, was previously approved by both the city and county commission. That revenue stream of CDT will cover the balance of the $107 million. So the 107 minus the 4447.
And then, correct me if I'm wrong, we would have demolished the Orange Bowl. We would have cited the Orange Bowl if we put a park out there, if we put a affordable housing project out there, if we had put a mixture of hotels, office buildings, retail. We would have spent this money and not allowed 40 acres to lay fallow in the city of Miami. If I put the land aside for a moment, because I've always been curious, I haven't been doing this long county, I've always been curious why the city and the county fight over who owns what, because to me it's owned by the citizens of Miami, and I've never understood the fight over the PAC. I do understand the police officers' issues, we'll get into that someday, but I've never understood the necessity of the county to say, I own this, the city owns this. I've always thought it was ours as public officials. I thought it was the citizens. I always thought it was all of ours. So I've never really cared who owned what. But that's just my thinking. As long as it was the general public's, I thought that was the most important thing that any of us would care about as elected officials. And yeah, we can fight over smaller issues. So if I put the land aside for a moment, which will still be held by the public, and I notice on my tax bill, I pay them just as much as I pay the city of Miami. Or sometimes I think more, but it seems to me the city is putting $13 million when you do all your reductions.
Correct.
Don't say that too loud.
Don't say that too loud? Okay. And I want to say that I was decidedly pretty much against this whole scenario until I looked at the agreement, and I read the agreement. I thought as carefully as I've read an agreement as a lawyer, and my hat's off to the mayor, my hat's off to the city manager, and to the city attorneys who negotiated this. I didn't expect to read an agreement from the city's perspective that I think makes financial sense. Mr. Mayor, I told you about my memories. For those of you that don't know, I am estranged from my father, my real father. My real memories of my father come from him grabbing me and running down Shea Stadium to make sure we got our seat quickly. And we did this about 5 to 10 times in our life. It's a strong memory in my mind. I've struggled with, since I've been a commissioner, what is a public purpose? I know I came to this commission thinking I knew what a public purpose was. I know my mind has changed to some degree what a public purpose is. I know that in the Omni CRA, for instance, recently I was approached originally by the Omni CRA as a board member by the Women's Club, and I was originally asked for $12.7 million to redo the Women's Club. I know it's got 200 members. They could argue they have 250. That's fine, too. I know it has some valid public purpose. I'm not sure what, but at that price, it was $63,500 per person. I know recently at a CRA meeting, again the Omni CRA, the Women's Club came to us and asked this time for $2.7 million, and that was to get their 40-year certification back up. Again, with the same 200 women, that came to $13,500 per woman. I wasn't sure that was public purpose. I didn't vote for it, to be quite honest with you. The question I asked myself, what are the memories, what are the great times, and how do we measure ourselves as a society? I know we're supposed to say our artwork. I know we're supposed to say, you know, Renoir. I know we're supposed to say the new modern arts. But it's different for all of us. Each one of us will have a different way of measuring our lives. Many of you will measure it through your children, the birth of your child. Many of you will measure it at a communion ceremony. Many of you will measure it at a confirmation ceremony. Some of you will measure it at a bar mitzvah. And some of us will measure it through experiences that we had in life. I can remember, for instance, an experience with the '97 Marlins when I first met the woman that I married, watching an entire World Series. And she hates baseball. She watched the entire World Series with me. I heard the mayor say that he got to go to a Marlins game, and it was a World Series game, so I'm a little bit jealous. I've never been to a World Series game. But I do remember the '69 Mets. I remember being allowed in grammar school, Wheeler Avenue in Long Island. We were allowed to bring radios, AM radios. Remember that old Zenith AM radio? We were actually allowed to listen to the games, the '69 Mets. I remember the '86 Mets because I happened to have an autographed picture of the entire '86 Mets that are still alive over my bed, to my wife's chagrin, in my house. But I want you to know that anything I do today on a vote will not come as a result of my love, dislike, or anything to do with how I feel about baseball. It has to exclusively do with the agreement that's before us. And I was decidedly going to vote against this agreement because I never expected it to be this good for the city of Miami. This is a good agreement for the city of Miami. This is a great agreement for, if you will, Ellis Island. I think that's a great analogy. My family actually came through Ellis Island, and there actually are Sarnoffs on the plaques of Ellis Island. This is a good agreement for Little Havana. This is a very good agreement for every part of the city of Miami. And that includes Overtown, and that includes all parts of Miami. How do you measure our contribution? I don't know that there is an exact measuring stick that any of us here know how to measure what that will mean. Whether it's a memory, whether it's a feeling, whether it's a bar mitzvah, a confirmation, or watching a World Series game, or if it's just merely bringing your father. That's a great analogy, Mr. Mayor. Bringing your father, the direct opposite, to a baseball game and making sure you hold his hand to make sure he makes it through the crowd. You know, the city of Miami, we don't have a great mass transit system. We don't have a way and a means that we all meet each other in a huge environment. We have the Heat, we certainly have the Dolphins, and we may very well have the Miami Marlins. And that is where our public will mingle. That is where every race, every creed, every nationality will mix and root for one thing, hopefully the Miami Marlins. So for me, this agreement, the amount of money the city of Miami has to put up, what we would do with this venue, this agreement makes sense from a financial standpoint for the city of Miami. Again, my hat's off to you, Mr. Manager. My hat's off to you, Mr. Mayor. Whether you worked a day on this or you worked 1,000 days on this, the result is what counts. And you have a fine agreement from a financial perspective for each and every one of the citizens of the city of Miami, whether they're rich or whether they're poor. So I'm impressed with this agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Spence.